Joining us now, I don't know if he's calling from his office at 1265 Lombardi Avenue or not. We have maintained a friendship. We graduated from the University of Wisconsin the same year. We're both fans of Willie Porter. Sometimes we don't see eye to eye on issues regarding the Packers, but joining us to help us understand more clearly why the Packers have not just instituted this policy, but have told us about it the last couple of years, is the Packers Director of Public Affairs, Aaron Popkey, on Wilde Tausch. Pop, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing well. Great to hear your voice along with Tausch, and good Willie Porter drop there.
Yeah, well, we love Willie. All right, so you've been listening.
Yeah, we do.
You've heard some of the feedback. Help us. First of all, you mentioned that maybe we had a couple things not quite right. So help us understand what we're not sharing accurately, so we can start there.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity, and as I mentioned to you in the text, I think you and Mark and the others are hitting on most of the points. And as we always do, we try and be clear in any communication that we put out. But sometimes it gets missed as people read or listen or hear that sort of thing. But I think you guys were right on in talking about our intent here is on the home field advantage. As you all talked about, Mark, you spoke of it, having experienced it, we have a great and significant home field advantage at Lambeau Field. So, we want to maintain that, and we want to improve that where we can too. And, that is with our ticket holders, of course, and Packers fans going to the games. And what we said is ticket holders, and whether it's just conversationally or in the written print of our policy, those tickets are for the ticket holders, for that person, along with their family, friends, business associates, other Packers fans, their network of fans, all those types of Packers people. The tickets are for them to go to the games, enjoy them, and support the Packers. And what we have been doing in the last few years is taking a look at ticket usage. And when we see, you guys were talking about some of the large blocks of tickets that were out there years ago, that were solely being sold on the secondary market. We wanted to have those be put into the hands of Packers fans, mainly through the waitlist. So that's been part of that exercise, going back a few years ago with those larger blocks of tickets. And in recent years, we've been focusing on fans who've sold 100% of their tickets for multiple years. And as we said this year, our thinking there is that if you're a season ticket holder whose sole intent is to resell the tickets, then it's probably time to not be a season ticket holder anymore. So that's the main goal of this exercise that we've been doing these last few years, to try and get more Packers fans in the stands to help with that home field advantage. And the other thing I said recently too is we've got such a great experience at Lambeau Field that you've spoken about in a few different ways and callers have recognized. We're proud of that. And we do like hosting fans from other teams. That's part of the tradition. Lambeau's a bucket list and those sorts of things. Makes for great TV to have some fans from the other team there. We would love for that experience to continue, but as I said, we'd like those numbers to be in the hundreds, not the thousands. So everything we're doing here is just focusing on maintaining and building, increasing that home field advantage.
Pop, how do you, I guess the question I have is, how do you monitor that? Because we had Mark call in, a 6.5-hour drive, and someone else from Colorado called in and has season tickets. And if they're giving them to Packer fans, you don't really care, right? That is a big part of it. How do you monitor that? Because if you go and you sell your tickets to Johnny in Waukegan, who's a big Packer fan, there's not a ton of issues, but it does feel like because there was those big blocks of purple and Honolulu blue, I'm with you. I want home field advantage to be huge. I get it. Matt LaFleur has been pounding on improving that and getting it better over his tenure. I just wonder how you monitor Frankie's season tickets, and if he's selling them to his friends and whatnot, how you say, well, this is how this goes. I don't know all the inner workings of it. I want to understand it better.
Sure, that's a great question. And as we say right in our policy, it's the season ticket holders. The tickets are for their use, their enjoyment, for that person, along with their family, friends, business associates, and others. Their Packers network, their network of Packers fans. So those examples that you gave, I mean, that's what we're talking about. If you yourself can't go to the game, do your best to get them in the hands of Packers fans, and it's that normal network that people speak of, and a couple of your callers mentioned that too. I go to a few games, and I have an arrangement with my family, with my neighbors, my coworkers. We all divvy them up. That's the way we can do it. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. That's the practice we're hoping for and trying to encourage with this messaging. It's the ones that we see that are whether it's posting on the secondary market, like 100% of those tickets for multiple years. I mean, for that, we see that and we say, well, geez, that person's sole intent is to sell those tickets each and every year. And that's not what a season ticket holder is. And if you are transferring tickets, if those types of things, if you're getting them in the hands of Packers fans, that's what we're looking for. It's those instances where we can see that they're being sold 100% of the time. And Ticket Exchange is a great platform, and that was created, years ago. And as some of your listeners mentioned, we do encourage people to use that. But our order of use is use the tickets yourself, use them with your family, friends, Packers Network. If you and those people aren't going, get them in the hands of Packers fans. And for the times where you've exhausted all those things, Ticket Exchange is a great way to post them for sale. But that should be, last on your list. All these other things should be first. So that's what we're encouraging with this messaging. And Jason, you mentioned it. We're being more intentional this year with it than we were last year.
So, Pop, what is the process? And I don't know how many people have had their tickets revoked. I don't know if that's a number that has been shared or not, but what is it if there is maybe a miscommunication? If someone had it, was giving them to their family and friends, but they sold them all the time, and then the Packers said, well, you're selling all your tickets, you're revoking them. Is there an appeals process, or how is that? And I don't know if that has happened yet, if someone has kind of fought back and said, well, that's BS, kind of like what Mark was saying, or what has been that from your perspective from the Green Bay Packers?
No, good question, and glad to try and clarify that. Years ago when we started this process, it was, as I said earlier, it was a large block, and when we approached those people, by and large, they said, "Okay, I understand. I appreciate the process here," and that was the first year or two, and now we've gotten more into just people doing exactly what I described. And there is a process. If people had extenuating circumstances, we have a process that's outlined in the information that we send to those that we are not renewing. And speaking of that point, I should point out, and I think most ticket holders and fans understand this, but the tickets are not owned by the ticket holders. They are a year-to-year prospect. So each season, as a season ticket holder, you have the opportunity to purchase tickets. So you don't own them. You purchase them from the team. There's not a personal seat license that was purchased at Lambeau Field. There was a user fee that you paid, and you still, when you come off the wait list, that is something that still happens. You pay a user fee, which goes into a fund that helps keep up Lambeau Field. And when you are no longer a season ticket holder, you get that money back. So it's a difference from a seat license. So there's no ownership there. And the Packers choose to issue tickets to a season ticket holder each and every year. And the language states that we can choose not to renew those for any reason or for no reason. And our process now is we're taking a look at the usage of the tickets. And again, as we stated, it's people who are selling 100% of them, people who are repeatedly reselling them, that we're acting on, and sending out the information about not renewing them. And then as far as the process goes, if they've got some circumstances, they can email us, explain what those are. And we've had those over the last couple of years, and we have made exceptions for people who had illnesses or people who were serving in the military and just tried to get them in the hands of Packers fans but weren't able to. And we'll take a look at that information, and if we feel it's legitimate and compelling, we've made exceptions in those certain circumstances.
Talking with Packers Director of Public Affairs Aaron Popkey on Wilde Tausch. All right, Pop, I got a couple other things for you, and then we'll let you get back to the other public affairs that you're overseeing. One, to your point about the selling 100%, is that going to remain the policy? Because, again, and I think you know this because of my history as our family being season ticket holders, it is not getting any less expensive to go to games. And there are some diehard Packers fans that, on whatever their limited income may be, they sell some of their tickets so they can afford to keep the games that they want to be able to go to. So is it very clear for you guys as of now that it is, hey, if you're going to some of the games and selling some of them so you can make your payments on the tickets and afford to go, we're still okay with you? Is that a fair depiction of where you guys want to be and will remain being?
Well, I think our focus is on the usage. So if a ticket holder is going to the game, that is our focus. If you are repeatedly reselling those tickets, that's where we have a problem. Now, if you have an arrangement, and we hear this all the time, and same thing. I'm a third-generation season ticket holder. Before I was an employee of the Packers, and I've got 3 siblings, I've got cousins, I've got neighbors. We all make arrangements to go to the games. Whether you physically aren't going to be in town and you can't go to a game, or as you said, it's a budget situation. Well, we know fans make arrangements to divvy up the season, and we hear those stories each and every year, and those are some of the great lore of Packers fans. The way they share the tickets with their siblings and cousins and neighbors, and the schedule comes out, and they say, all right, I pay for the tickets each year, I control them, they're in my name, so I get first choice, and I'm going to choose this game, whether they take 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, green or gold, all those types of things. Those are some of the great stories that get shared, with us in the ticket office, or just anecdotally, and on game weekends at Lambeau Field, you walk through the atrium and you hear those types of stories. So those are out there, and we are perfectly fine with that. If you've got arrangements you need to make to come to games each and every year, and that's a tradition of tickets that have been in families for years, that they get used that way. And the intent is to be used by the ticket holder, or as we say, family, friends, Packers fans, network, those types of things.
At this point, how many, because what is capacity? 81,000. I think you told me that there's about 38,000 accounts for ticket holders. How many tickets to this point have changed hands that have been moved to people that have been on the waiting list?
Yeah, you spoke of that earlier. So, we've got 81,000 tickets. Now, not all those seats are
right.
Season ticket holder seats. As you know, there's the visiting team allotment, there's the media allotment, and internal uses for sponsors and all those types of things. But numbers-wise, between the green and gold package, we have over 38,000 accounts. And this exercise that we've been doing these last few years with those who have been repeatedly reselling their tickets and us not renewing them, we'll call it a few thousand tickets have become available, which has allowed us to bring over 1,000 new season ticket holders off the wait list. So, we're pleased, many and most of those tickets that are not being renewed, we're able to put toward the list, which is 155,000 names now, and fans have been on that for decades. We know those fans are ready to go to the games, and many of them go to the games each and every year through friends, family, coworkers, that sort of thing. But now they are actual season ticket holders, and we know their usage of those tickets is going to be, near 100%. So that's part of this process, because we know we've got those fans waiting to become ticket holders, and if you are a ticket holder now and your sole intent is to simply resell those, you probably shouldn't be a ticket holder anymore.
All right, last thing, and then we'll let you go. As you know, as I've mentioned many times, my grandparents bought tickets in the 1940s at State Fair Park. That's how those ended up in my family. So I am partial to the Milwaukee crowd, who I do think occasionally gets a little bit of a bad rap from green package ticket holders. But
I agree with you.
The policy is the second and fifth home game goes to the Milwaukee package. And as John in Milwaukee, our caller before you, had said, this past season, it was a Thursday night game against Washington and then a Monday night game against the Eagles. Two great primetime games, not super convenient if you are traveling up I-43 and back. Is there any discussion about changing the formula so you can have a little more flexibility? So if you have a couple of noon starts, you can have those be the green package or the gold package instead? Or is that something that you guys have looked at? Because I do think that contributes many times to tickets winding up on the secondary market for gold package folks.
No, great question. And some of your listeners and you guys may recall when we stopped playing games in Milwaukee and brought all the games up to Lambeau in '95. We made a decision then, one, to extend the opportunity to be a season ticket holder at Lambeau Field, and 96% of our county stadium season ticket holders opted to take that up. So that was great. And when we first did that, we chose games 2 and 6. It was initially games 2 and 6, home games 2 and 6. Mm-hmm. But 6 kept landing on hunting weekend. So we had a lot of complaints from fans, about it being then. Plus it was, it was a week or two later, and sometimes, the weather would get a little more challenging. There could be those travel days with more time to take. So we thought, for a few different reasons, let's just move it to 5. So games 2 and 5. And also back then, we used to put in a request with the NFL to put, to have those games only be day games.
Yep, I remember
Sunday
Bob
noon
Harlan
and
saying
the Sunday
that.
3:20.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we had done that with that in mind, but after a few seasons, we started hearing from the gold package fans. We're like, hey, we want one of those night games. It's a different atmosphere, and we were coming into the next generation of excellence, for however many 70s and 80s, it was always noon on Sunday. But now we were a team on the rise. We had the Super Bowl, all our Hall of Famers. We were year in and year out pretty successful, and a huge draw for the networks, growing into that. So the NFL said, hey, there's more night games coming your way. There's more primetime games coming your way. So it got more and more difficult for the NFL to schedule our games, and I know some fans don't like that, but the reality is there's more and more focus on the schedule and the networks and who gets what game. And the Packers, this is a good thing. We draw really well on TV. We're America's team in so many respects. So, we are 1/32nd of a teammate to the NFL, so we have to keep that in mind too. So what the NFL kept coming to us and saying, hey, this game's 2 and 5 and only day games, it's becoming more of a challenge. Plus we had fans who were saying, hey, we want those night games. So we said, you know what, it'll be easier logistically for the whole scheme of things for the NFL. Hey, games 2 and 5, home games 2 and 5, use them as you need. Now we still make requests, for certain games. If this fall, Tausch, we got the Badgers here with Notre Dame,
That'll
so
be fun.
that weekend, it's land and Labor Day weekend, so that's a different thing. But the Wisconsin LSU game was in the midst of the early season, so we had to protect that weekend. So every now and then you're still going to make requests for certain weekends, but because the NFL schedule has become such a very, very specific process that has to meet so many different needs, it was just too difficult to try and hold those games. Plus the fans enjoyed both. And basically what we said is, you know what, year after year, sometimes it's going to land in a funky way with a couple of night games. But other years, they're going to get a couple of division opponents that are on Sundays, and those types of things. So over the course of several years, it's going to even out, so to speak.
Aaron, we appreciate you jumping on and helping us understand what's going on there at 1265. We appreciate that a lot. Thanks a lot.
Oh, my pleasure, and really, fellas, anytime. Appreciate the time you're taking to discuss these things, and hopefully that clarified a few things.
All right, get Willie Porter to sing a national anthem this season, okay?
Hey, we're working on it.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
All right, guys, thank you.
That is Aaron Popkey, the Director of Public Affairs for the Packers.